This line chart tracks prescription volume in the United States. It shows a rapid, sustained increase over the early 2000s until it hit a peak in 2011. That year, pharmacies dispensed 144.5 million prescriptions for hydrocodone. That volume is equivalent to handing a bottle of pills to nearly half the country. It became a household staple, sitting in medicine cabinets under familiar brands like Vicodin and Lortab. To understand how it achieved this scale, we have to look at what hydrocodone actually is. It is a semi-synthetic opioid, derived from codeine, originally engineered to manage severe chronic pain. Pharmaceutical companies paired it with acetaminophen, the active ingredient in Tylenol. The logic was that if someone tried to ingest a massive dose to get high, the acetaminophen would cause severe liver toxicity. The threat of liver failure was designed to be a built-in deterrent against abuse. This strategy created a volatile chemical intersection. The opioid component drove the behavioral cycle of addiction, while the acetaminophen silently accumulated in the liver, turning a manageable dependency into catastrophic internal injury. When swallowed, these hydrocodone molecules absorb directly into the bloodstream and travel rapidly towards the central nervous system. Deep inside the brain, they seek out mu-opioid receptors. These are specialized proteins embedded in the cell membrane. The hydrocodone molecules are shaped to occupy these sites with high precision. The moment they bind, they inhibit the transmission of pain signals and trigger a massive flood of dopamine. This chemical release overrides physical pain with an intense feeling of euphoria. But the brain compensates for this artificial surge. To restore a state of balance, it will increase the number of receptor sites. It effectively dilutes the drug's impact, requiring a higher concentration of molecules to generate the same biological signal. This cellular adaptation changes the core chemical balance of the central nervous system, shifting the drug from a pain management tool to a permanent biological requirement. For decades, the Drug Enforcement Administration classified hydrocodone combination products under a lenient regulatory category known as Schedule III. This chart breaks down the legal differences. Under Schedule III, a patient could receive up to 5 automatic refills within 6 months, and doctors were permitted to call those prescriptions into the pharmacy over the phone. Patients learned they could visit multiple clinics, a practice known as doctor shopping, and accumulate massive quantities of the drug. This loose oversight allowed millions of pills to flow directly from pharmacies into the black market. In 2014, the federal government intervened. The DEA moved all hydrocodone combination products into the highly restrictive Schedule II category. The new rules required written or secure electronic prescriptions and ended the practice of automatic refills. Almost immediately, the volume of hydrocodone dispensed dropped by 30%. This reduction restricted the legal supply, but it left millions of physically dependent users cut off from their medication. Desperate to avoid the onset of severe withdrawal, many of these users migrated toward the illicit black market. As tolerance forces the dosage higher, the amount of hydrocodone required to mitigate pain begins to overlap with the amount that shuts down the brainstem. The drug's reach extends past the spinal cord and begins to overwhelm the neurons responsible for involuntary survival. The brainstem controls the autonomic nervous system. Excess opioids block the signal to breathe, causing respiratory depression. The lungs slow down and stop. Without oxygen, the body enters severe hypoxia. The skin turns cold and clammy, and the lips and fingernails fade to a dark blue or gray. When paramedics arrive, they check for a diagnostic hallmark of an opioid overdose. They look for meiosis, pupils that have constricted to the size of a pinpoint. It is a quiet, gradual process. The central nervous system effectively ceases to maintain the body's basic survival functions. There is exactly one direct chemical defense against this shutdown. It is an opioid antagonist called Naloxone, widely known by the brand name Narcan. Naloxone has a significantly higher binding affinity for mu receptors. When administered, these molecules physically displace the opioids from the receptor sites. Naloxone then occupies those sites, acting as a chemical shield. This blocks the opioids, restoring the brainstem's breathing signal within minutes. But naloxone is temporary. It has a short half-life of just 30 to 90 minutes. If the patient ingested a massive dose of hydrocodone, the opioids will outlast the antidote, and the respiratory failure can return once the Narcan wears off. Because the window for survival is so narrow, the responsibility for administering this intervention has shifted away from hospitals and onto everyday citizens, librarians, and family members. Naloxone provides a crucial temporary window of life, but the hydrocodone epidemic demonstrates that arresting a chemical crisis requires fixing the systemic regulatory failures that initiated the cycle in the first place.